Hey everybody, I'm Alex McClellan, and this is my lovely brother Mason. And we're the Backtrack Brothers. The movie we're covering today is Batman Begins. It was written by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, based on characters by Bob Kane, and it was directed by Christopher Nolan. The score for Batman Begins was done by Hans Zimmer. He's one of my favorite composers. He got his first Academy Award for Lion King. James Newton Howard also contributed to the score, and he was a very skilled composer in his own right. He was that went fucking Irish for a second. Along with James Newton Howard, a very skilled composer in his own right. His most famous work would probably be from The Sixth Sense and I Am Legend. This movie originally came out on June 15th, 2005, and it can be streamed today at Netflix and HBO Max. Batman Begins illuminates the backstory of young Bruce Wayne. It shows his motivations and the training and everything that led to the realization of what we currently know as Batman. The second half of this film is much more on par with a classic Batman film, where Batman pits his detective and general badassery skills against a slew of baddies. Fitting with the comic book theme, the settings are all grand and glorious. Nolan does a great job creating his own version of Gotham that feels familiar, yet is clearly over-stylized. One clear example of this is the disparity between Wayne Manor and the Narrows, which is insanely staggering. You truly feel like you're in an underworld after taking one wrong turn, something many city dwellers can relate to. Completely legitimate opinion, everyone's entitled. Mason and I are very divided when it comes to the CGI in this movie. Mason has a few issues, to say the least, when it comes to CGI in this movie, most notably the nightmare sequences. Whereas I thought the effects actually were pretty good, and I think they hold up even to this day. Mason's notes on this movie are pretty damning. To quote Mason, one segment that had me laughing was when Batman was gliding and his face was lit up like a glow stick, and a sound played that, I imagine, is similar to the sound Alex would make if he saw Michael Madsen naked. Yeah, that's fair. One thing we both agreed on was that the practical effects are outstanding. We particularly enjoyed the many explosions that are just a hint of what's to come down the line in this awesome Batman series. This movie will satisfy the pyrotechnicians and the arsonists in the crowd, for sure. Though the effects are great, Mason and I both felt that the fight scenes could have been shot better. Anytime Batman is taking on multiple men, kinky, it's heavily edited and zoomed in way too close, typically causing a state of confusion instead of a state of euphoria. This could be partially due to us just covering the Kill Bill movies, where the combat is expertly choreographed and filmed in comparison, but it generally isn't a highlight of this Batman movie. Let's take a second to hear a word from our sponsor.
You're a maverick renegade, a predator of the night, sneaking up on your prey and making them scream like a little bitch. Where are you? Here. But sometimes your suit can be a bit clunky. Just because you're the Dark Knight doesn't mean you have to suffer in a suit of armor. Wear Boomer brand stuff. It's light, flexible, and it isn't affiliated with any crime lords. It's my preferred brooding attire. Don't be a consumer. Wear Puma.
Beware, this is not a paper promotion by Puma. Puma is in no way affiliated with Backtrack Brothers or any Backtrack Brothers properties. Puma will take swift and violent action on any viewer who misconstrues this as a real ad. You've been warned! Hans Zimmer is a very effective movie composer. All the stuff that was hyper effective in Inception, another Christopher Nolan movie that came out a few years later, are all present in Batman Begins, and really through the rest of this trilogy. See, the mechanical, long, droned out mechanical noises that you hear all throughout trailers nowadays started really with this film franchise. This movie barely relies on a soundtrack at all. There's a total of 3 songs that are credited in this movie, one of them being Happy Birthday. I will say this though, Hans and his boy Howard, they pretty much just said, hold my beer while I compose this 2.5 hour long epic movie. Pretty impressive. These two composers suavely intertwine classical orchestra sounds with modern electronica in a way that is very common now, but was fairly revolutionary when we were in the mid-2000s. The musical tone and visuals move together seamlessly and combine with the dark, foreboding energy and tension that you expect from a Batman film. When it comes to Christian Bale's performance, Mason and I are the definition of divided. Let me preface this by saying I am a humongous fan of anything Christian Bale does. We're talking about American Psycho, The Machinist, The Prestige, The Big Short. We're talking about just straight A awesome acting across the board. But I have to admit, this is clearly not Bale's best performance. Is he my personal favorite Batman? 100%. But that doesn't mean he's approaching anywhere near the level of performance he's had in those earlier films. Mason thought that Bale's performance was a bit dull and kind of filled with classic superhero one-liner dialogue, and I can understand what he's saying, but I also think that he thinks this because he didn't go back and watch those 90 films where Schwarzenegger, Clooney, and Val Kilmer were putting on some acting masterclasses in this Batman series.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! All right, everyone, chill. The blood will freeze in my hands.
I think part of the generational gap that is between Mason and I here is that I grew up with those corny 90s films and watching the animated Batman series, which really were mostly geared towards children. Nowadays, there's so many popular superhero films that are geared towards all audiences that you kind of take it for granted when you get a good adult superhero film. To see Batman in a real dark and grimy, effective live-action atmosphere and being a real dickhead was pretty revolutionary in 2005, when you're used to watching him in animated shorts or corny little films that Schumacher put out. The foundation that the current Batman is on, that this younger generation just thinks is Batman? No. Nolan made that standard. Outside of Christian Bale, there weren't really any performances that we both, had issue with, and that person is Katie Holmes, unfortunately. We just didn't believe in the chemistry that her and Christian Bale had, and to be completely honest, sometimes it feels like her acting is just reading off of cue cards. It's time to run through some of my favorite side characters in this movie. Liam Neeson.
And don't even get me started on that one when they took his daughter.
Straight tookin', starring Liam Neeson.
Man, Liam Neeson's on the phone like, I have a certain set of skills.
He was so cool and influential that by the end of the film, he'll have you questioning your own geopolitical stances. Cillian Murphy, who always plays evil in the most seductive ways. Go watch Red Eye. Morgan Freeman, who kills it in every role in any film he's in, really cooks in his small role in this film. And last but not least, my boy Michael Caine, who's playing Alfred. He does an astounding job of really showing you the duality of Alfred's character. He shows you both the caring provider.
Why do we force? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
And the blunt wise ass who tells Bruce how it is.
What is the point of all those push-ups if you can't even lift a bloody log?
Those two clips were played within 1 minute of film time. That takes a lot of skill to convincingly pull off both of those scenes that close to each other. One thing that I think is pivotal to understand going into this movie is that really it's a movie of two halves. The first half is giving you the full backstory and you're not seeing really any Batman action at all. The second half is definitely your traditional Batman classic crime fighter. And honestly, a lot of people struggle to get through that first half to enjoy the second half. The first half is slower paced and dives into nitty-gritty Batman lore details that casual viewers will either be confused over or truly just not care about. The first hour can feel like an eclectic mix of action montages, a court drama, and a coming-of-age movie. If you're invested in Batman's backstory and want to follow along closely, you'll find it very satisfying to find out how Bruce became Batman in a way that hasn't been explained in a live-action movie before. If you just want to see Batman kick some ass, you're probably going to be thinking, let's go! Let's go! Let's go! In this video series, we use the Holdupability Scale. The scale goes from something that doesn't hold up at all, we'll call that a wet noodle, to something that holds up in every way, shape, and form. We're gonna call that a steel beam. For this movie, Mason and I are actually giving separate scores because we each kind of had our own take on this film. We really couldn't agree on a number or an item to score this film. My rating for Batman Begins is a burning log.
My rating is a wet glider. I mean, it's better than not having one at all.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified of our dope content. Even comment what type of movies you want to see. Maybe we could watch them together. Who knows? Fucking weird.